started. I screwed up the beginning. I didn't monetize the video yet. Let me see if I can try this here. I don't know if I can do this here. But Mets lost today 4-2. Wait for a couple people coming in here. I don't do too many live streams, but it's a beautiful day. I probably should have done this outside. But let me see. This is not a very... the Mets have not played as well as I would like to see them play over the last few days. Now, they've beaten up teams in the games they've won, but in the games they've lost, did not hit with men on base. The bullpen, which has pitched really well, has not pitched well over the last few losses. I mean, Brian Stanek has killed them. He killed them Friday, killed them Sunday, and he killed them last night. I mean, you can't just not be competitive in your pitching. And he was not competitive, and he's not been competitive in the last 3 outings that he's had. Now today, which is very similar to what happened in last night's game. Now, I was out most of the night. I was able to watch the ninth inning. The ninth inning and the eighth inning was almost like carbon copies of what happened, with both games. The Mets had men on base, and they just couldn't get the big hit. They just could not get the big hit over the last. And that eighth inning was very frustrating. Vientos had a bad at bat. Winker, I'm going to say this. And they mentioned at the end of the game, the umpiring in the last 2 series has been atrocious. Has been terrible. Do these guys, have they ever umpired in their lives? Because the umpiring was so bad over the last two series. How many times on the weekend series, what was it, at least 10 times they went to the booth? How many calls did CB Buckner blow? And that guy's a crew chief. You had 2 bad crew chiefs in a row, 2 series in a row where the crew chiefs were terrible. Alfonso Marquez is a complete disaster, and CB Buckner shouldn't even be umpiring in Major League Baseball anymore. People complain about Angel Hernandez. These guys stink too. The only difference with these guys, they don't make spectacles of themselves, like Angel Hernandez did. And how do you screw up the thing in the ninth inning on the foul ball to the last batter in that Suarez? It was a foul ball that was caught by Torrance. How does the umpire screw that up? You screwed it up because you ain't paying attention, you're incompetent, and you're stupid. And you're lazy, too. So one thing I know about these umpires now is they're very, very lazy. And you see it. But this offense, it either scores a lot of runs or it doesn't score enough runs. So that's really the big issue here. Although the one big bright spot obviously is Juan Soto hitting 2 home runs in this game. One in the 6th inning, one in the 8th inning. That's a big deal, seeing how he has had a big game today. And he had the little pep in his step, which was nice to see. But there was nobody on base for him. Lindor didn't have a good game today. Zach Gallen had a great game. He was pitching really well against the Mets. But give credit to the Diamondbacks the last 2 nights because their bullpen did a good job. The Mets bullpen is taking in some water. Don't have AJ Minter. He's gone. He's done for the year. Danny Young, who I'm not a big fan of, he's done for the year, I would think. We'll see what the results are for him, but this is not a great situation. I would mention in the 8th inning, I really thought Pete should have scored from first on the double by Winker. I was surprised that he did not have a better read on that ball. I was surprised he didn't have a better read on that ball off the bat of Winker because I thought that ball was going to be close to being out, and he did not read that ball at all well. And that's why Sarbach held him, because he should have scored on that run. He should have scored on that hit. I was surprised he didn't score him. So I was very surprised by that. But really, this offense was very quiet today. Like I said, Gallen had pitched a very strong game against the Mets, and that's the one thing you can say. Senga did not give the Mets length in this game because there were a lot of long innings going into the fourth inning where he threw a lot of pitches. And again, you have to sort of manage his innings a little bit. Obviously, the Mets don't want him pitching every 5 days. They want him pitching every 6 days. The Mets have not announced who's pitching Saturday because that's the next day they're going to need somebody because they're trying to skip Senga a little bit. They're trying to get him to pitch once a week. They don't want him pitching every 5 days. So that's why Senga's performance today was difficult to deal with because the Mets used the opener last night and they had to really dig deep into the bullpen. That's why Genesis Cabrera and Ty Adcock, a very unfortunate name, was in the game tonight or today. That's why those guys. I would give kudos to Brandon Waddle last night, who pitched great. Pitched 4 and a third innings, did not give up a run. He had to get sent back. Had to get sent back to AAA because they can't use him today or tomorrow because he pitched so many. He threw so many pitches last night. But now I'm a little behind because I didn't do a video last night. So if I go back and forth between last night and today, please keep in mind can't be everywhere. But I was very surprised how the bullpen has pitched. Maybe it's because they are leaking a little bit. We have Cabrera, who did not pitch well, behind the counter. He got one out in that fifth inning. He had to go back to Max Kranick, who pitched good in his first inning when he got those final outs, and then he went into the into the seventh inning, and it was a struggle to where he couldn't get that one of those outs. He gave a run. The Met bullpen cost the Mets the game today, to be honest with you, by giving up these runs. And that run in the ninth inning absolutely killed the Mets because you can't. Like, I thought the Mets were going to go to Diaz. I mean, if you're going to have Diaz warming up in the bullpen, you're going to want to have to bring him in. I know that you don't bring him in a tie game, but you're at home. It's still early in the season. You're not wearing him out. He hasn't pitched since, Monday? So he hasn't really pitched all week. You could have had him pitch in the ninth inning. I was very surprised he went back to Garrett for that second inning. Very, very surprised. And he gave up that home run to that batter. I didn't write his name. See, I just think about the way I keep score. I keep score very differently than most people because I'm always doing a lot of stuff in the house. I only keep score on one side, and that's the Mets. I've always done that. But with Garrett coming in and that second inning, I was like, why are you doing that? And then he brings in Adcock anyway. So if you're going to go to a guy, if he struggles to get outs in the ninth inning, why don't you go in to bring in Adcock to pitch him in the ninth inning? Or if you got, like I said, if you got Diaz warming up in the bullpen, why are you going back to Garrett? If you got him hot, get him in the game. Get the Mets a shot in the ninth inning. But really, offensively, the Mets blew this game in the eighth inning because Soto was trying to get them back in this game. That home run turned the momentum around a little bit. And then Pete got on with a walk. And I saw when Winker did not bring in Pete with that double, they weren't going to tie the game because I did not feel comfortable. I know Vientos has hit much better, but he still has these holes in his swing right now. And like I said, and that's a little mistake by Pete, not running the bases properly to where he got the second, but he wasn't. He should have been at second when the ball hit the wall. Obviously, he wasn't there. Like last night, for instance, when Pete got hit by that pitch in the ninth inning, I was like, the Mets aren't going to score any runs here. It's going to be a real struggle to win the game, and that's what happened last night. And of course, Vientos struck out in the ninth inning, and so did Alvarez as well. Alvarez had a terrible bat. Aside from his home run in the first two games, he's gone back to trying to hit the ball 20 miles. He's too good of a hitter to be hitting like that. But that's how he's been hitting the last 3 or 4 games, aside from the first 2 games. And then today, Vientos had a bad at bat. Again, he's still trying to pull the ball. I know Genko came in, he pitched pretty good, but you have to be smart enough to know that he's not going to throw you a pitch inside. He's going to try to hit the outside part of the plate. And if it's too far off the plate, you just take it. He didn't do that. And Brandon Nimmo, who had a big game on Monday, I can't complain about his at bat. I would have gotten fooled on that pitch right down the middle. They said during the broadcast that they were looking for, that if they were Nimmo, they'd be looking for a slider on that pitch, and he threw a fastball right down the middle. But really, the real culprit, really, over the last 7 games, and when the Mets are 3-4 in the last 7 games, is the bullpen. And it's guys that aren't injured that have killed them, And Stanek's been the number one culprit over the last few days. And the big culprit today was probably Cabrera and Kranick and Garrett, really. I mean, really 3 of them. Those 3 guys killed the Mets because they needed to sort of, it's one thing, Cabrera gives up the run in the 5th inning. That's the one thing. I mean, the 5th inning. But then the Mets get a run in, and then right away in the next inning, the Diamondbacks responded, okay, with the hit run off of Kranick, and then the same thing happened in the 8th to the 9th inning. You had them getting a run in the 9th inning. You can't let the road team respond to that, or you're going to lose the game. And if you're not hitting with men in scoring position, then you're going to have a tough time of it. So, and that's what happened over the last. That's what's happened here over the last 2 days. Is the Mets haven't gotten the timely hitting that they've been getting, and they have not gotten the bullpen. They've gotten the starting pitching. The pitching has been very strong. Been getting 5 strong innings. But again, like last year early on, when the Mets weren't getting guys to pitch 4 innings or into the 5th inning, or 5 strong innings, getting them into the 6th inning, the Mets struggled to win the game. And that's what happened today. Even though Kodai Senga only gave 1 run in 4 innings, he only pitched 4 innings. He had to get to 5 innings to help this bullpen out, especially since last night they had to go to an opener, and the bullpen got very taxed yesterday, and they needed it, more length out of him. So that's the one thing about having him in the rotation, is that you kind of have to sort of baby him and not have him pitch every 5 days. You have to have him off once a week. And when there are days, now I would mention after next week, this weekend the Mets play the Cardinals, then they play the Diamondbacks again in Arizona, and then they come back here and they play the Cubs. They have an off day on Thursday, and in fact, after today, the rest of the month of May, the Mets have Thursdays off. So that's the one thing about the schedule. I do have the schedule here, believe it or not, on the side here. Let me see. Yeah, so the next 4 Thursdays, the Mets are off. The Mets are off on Thursday. So they're not really going to need a 6th starter. But they're probably going to need somebody for Saturday. I don't know who they're going to call up. A rumor was a little while ago maybe Blade Tidwell will come and pitch. Who knows? He has not pitched that great. I would mention Brand Sprout has not pitched well in AAA. He's been very inconsistent. I have a video on the Prospect Hut talking about the Mets farm system, the daily farm report, and Brand Sprout did not pitch well last night. So just keep that in mind. But the Mets have been taking in water just in terms of the bullpen more than anything else. And tomorrow, Mets playing St. Louis. They play the weekend St. Louis, 3 games, night game, 2-day games, and then they play a 3-game series in Arizona. I'll have everything for the week. I'm going to be on vacation next week, so we'll cover a lot of stuff that's going on with Arizona with the Mets. And maybe I'll do a live stream here or there. We'll see. The live streams tend to be very, my live streams come and go. I never know when I'm going to do them. But I felt like doing it because I didn't feel like recording a video today because then it would just take forever to put it on YouTube. And then they come back, they play the Cubs, and they play the Pirates, and then they go to Yankees. I actually got a pretty big road trip after that. They play the Yankees and they play the Red Sox. And then they play the big old Dodgers. So the Mets have, the schedule's going to get a little bit harder now over the next few, after really, it'll be tough when they go to Arizona. Arizona's a good team. That's the one thing I'll say. This is the Phillies and now the Diamondbacks are the really first good teams the Mets have faced this year so far. And then when they come home, they'll play a big team in the Cubs. And the Cubs will have that'll be a big series coming up next week, and I'll be able to cover all that stuff. And then the Mets play the Pirates. Maybe the Mets will face Paul Skeens that week, and then they go on a big road trip to the Bronx to play the Yankees, and then they play Boston after that. So that should be very, very interesting. And then they come home and play the Dodgers. So the schedule's going to get a hell of a lot tougher over the next few weeks, but not quite yet. Then they play the Dodgers. Then they play the White Sox. They play the Rockies at home. Then they go on a 4-game road trip or a 7-game road trip to Los Angeles and then Colorado. Then they come home, play Washington again, play Tampa Bay, and then they play the Braves. The Mets play the Braves, and then they play the Phillies. So then the Mets have a 6-game road trip at the end of June against the Braves and against the Phillies. So that's a big road trip, obviously. And then they come home, play a 4-game series, 4 games at Citifield against the Braves. Then they go to Pittsburgh. And that can be sometimes difficult. Then the first week in July, I'll take this to the All-Star break. Then the first week in July, the Mets play Milwaukee, and then they play the Yankees to finish up. And then Baltimore, they go and play Baltimore. See if Baltimore turns their season around by then. And then Kansas City. Then we play. Then we have the All-Star break, and we'll have our big show for the draft. So the Mets have the 38th pick. Just to give you a rundown on the schedule of not only for me but for the Mets. But the Mets schedule starts to get tougher. Really starts to get tough next week because then they play the Diamondbacks and the Cubs and the Yankees and the Red Sox. And the Red Sox have been pretty good. And then they finish the All-Star break in Kansas City. And then they play some interesting teams at the end of July, but we won't go that far. When we get to it, we'll get to it. But this is May 1st. And now the Mets go play in St. Louis, and we'll see how that all turns out. But Mets lost today. Tough loss. Very frustrating loss, to be honest with you. Just like last night was. It's very frustrating when your bullpen bleeds runs during the game. You'd rather get blown out than have your bullpen bleed runs out. Because then what happens is you move 2 inches forward or 1 inch forward, and then you give up a run, you fall back 1 foot or 1 inch. So it's difficult to see this. Now they're posting the innings per 9, innings per start. It's 24th overall, but it's actually better, folks, than it was last year. That's the only real negative the Mets have had this year. Is that the stars haven't gone longer. But I would say the Mets have pitched much better in terms of starting pitching this year than they did last year. Obviously with the record sort of tells you that. But I think they'll start to get some length out of this. Sherman Nye should be coming back. Who knows when he's coming back? That's a big guy to come back. That'll be interesting to see who loses their spot in the rotation, because everybody's pitched well in the Mets rotation. But let me know what you think about this video if you're watching our replay. Thank you for watching this live stream. We'll be back in the near future. And, of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut. Have a good day. Get him tomorrow, and I'll see you later.